Creative Magic Club. What's up? This is Sarah Mack and welcome to Creative Magic Club. Together, we'll discover inspirational stories of creative entrepreneurs living out their dreams, doing the work they are most passionate about, and building wealth in magical and fun ways. While building a six-figure income as a writer and coach, helping other women to launch their dream businesses, I've connected with so many incredible people and seen it proven again and again that you can thrive financially doing whatever it is you are passionate about. I'm here to share life-changing strategies for mindset, making money, and reaching more people with your work in a business and life filled with creativity, freedom, and fun. Hi, welcome. I'm super excited to introduce my wonderful guest today, Amy Nicole, who is a very dear friend of mine here in Montreal. And she's also the founder of Namataste Nutrition, which is, she's a plant-based holistic nutritionist and yoga teacher, combining Eastern wisdom with modern plant-based science to help women lose weight, gain body confidence, and make a smooth transition to a plant-based lifestyle. So hi, Amy. Thank you so much.
Hello.
So I would love to kick this off with you telling me a little bit about your story in terms of like, what was that turning point where you really stepped into sharing your gifts and talents in entrepreneurship?
I would say there was a couple turning points on my journey. The first one was when I decided to go plant-based. That was 10 years ago, and it had always been something I wanted to do and never felt I had the freedom. So growing up, I would tell my mom, I want to be a vegetarian, not really understanding what that meant, but I knew I didn't want to be eating meat at a very young age. And our parents did the best they could with what they had, and it was not something that I was allowed to do because of B12 and protein and iron and all of the general worries that come along with plant-based living. So when I was 18, it dawned on me that I cook for myself now. So I think this is a good time, better than ever, to transition to plant-based. And it was a really pivotal moment in my life for a lot of reasons, but it was also a very sloppy transition. So it took me a few years. You know, I went through a little bit of weight loss, and then I went through some other physical changes, but then I became very, very sick. And I got sick to the point where I was in the hospital for 4 days, hooked up to an IV with really heavy antibiotics and an abscess on my tonsil the size of a golf ball. So I couldn't speak, I couldn't swallow, I couldn't anything. And it was a terrible experience. But at the same time, it was the actual turning point, which brought me to going to school and becoming a nutritionist. So it stemmed from not wanting to be in a hospital bed again and not wanting to feel uncomfortable in my body, just about the way that I looked, the way that I felt generally. And I'm talking physically, mentally, emotionally, holistically.
And so transitioning to a plant-based diet has helped you to fully recover and regain your health.
Yes. So, you know, when I first stopped eating meat, I was the vegetarian who was eating lots of veggie meats and chips and cookies because they didn't have meat in them. So it was a pretty highly processed diet, and that's sort of what led me down the path of becoming even more sick and led me to the hospital. So it wasn't just plant-based living, it was really doing plant-based living correctly, which brought me to a healthy point in my life. And it was during the first week in school that we started talking about the gut microbiome and all of our bacteria and how the bacteria affect our entire well-being, including our mental health. So that's where a lot of our serotonin is produced, over 80% of our serotonin, which is the happy chemical. And learning about this was just mind-boggling because I had realized I was in this cycle, this pattern of taking antibiotics, and then I would get sick again. And then I would take antibiotics and get sick again with absolutely no buffer, with no healing time in between. So when I recognized and realized what I had been doing to my body and what type of effect it was having on my overall well-being, it was like somebody shone a really bright light and was like, oh, the answer is here. So I was able to to start supplementing in my diet, to start eating the types of foods that were going to be beneficial to the bacteria in there, and was able to actually heal from the inside out. And of course, when we heal from the inside out, it manifests on the outside. So things like acne and eczema and 50 pounds of weight fell off my body. And it was just incredible to see the types of change that was happening just from correcting my gut dysbiosis.
That's amazing. I love that you're sharing this story because it's so important and it's so empowering. And I can actually second that. I went through a similar story with having a health challenge, having a massive burnout, chronic fatigue, depression. And that's really what led me down the rabbit hole of like, what can I be doing differently to support my body and to support my health? And, nutrition was like the main one for me. And I tried all of these different diets, and I was initially eating meat to recover from chronic fatigue and to really like build my energy back. And then there was just a point. I had this inkling that I was going to be going vegetarian at some point, but I was just waiting for that right time. And then eventually when my my health and my energy had come back, I was like, okay, and now I just feel like it's the time for me to turn vegetarian. And I really started regaining a lot of energy when I did that. And it's just so empowering to know how different foods affect different bodies, and what we should be eating, what we shouldn't be eating, because there's just so much conflicting information around there. And it is work, like reading the labels and really, making those very conscious choices, but it's work that like 100% pays off. Like my health is so much better than it's ever been. So I love that you're sharing this story. And talk to me a little bit about your journey because you're a yoga teacher as well as a nutritionist. And I know that you're relaunching your brand right now to combine those two together, which obviously, really work very well together. I myself am a yogi, and that's another practice that's really completely transformed my health, my wellness, my emotional stability, my spirituality, and everything. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about your journey in terms of navigating your multiple skills and talents and the journey of bringing those together in your business.
It's so funny because I would say I've been in the rebrand process for a couple of months. We're just towards the end of quarantine right now. So whoever's listening, I don't know when you're listening, but we are in June. And so back in, I think it was the end of or middle of March, I just had this aha moment where I thought, I've been operating two separate businesses. I've got my yoga clients and I've got my nutrition clients. And for some reason, there was a disconnect until this one moment where I was like, why am I doing this? Because, what I had realized is that in my business prior to right now, during this new brand rebranding, is that I was working with all sorts of people with all sorts of dietary preferences. And it was very general. It was very broad. And that in itself, when it comes to marketing, as I'm sure everyone here, if you're an entrepreneur, it's not the wisest choice. You want to be more niched down. And I was struggling to do that. And I found that I was working with people who were not my ideal clients, and people who, they didn't have any intention of becoming plant-based. But for me, it's a value, and it's a lifestyle, and it's something that I genuinely believe works. And what I recognized was that I wanted to be working with people who also had that value, who also wanted to live a more compassionate, conscious life, fueled by plant-based foods. And at the same time, this other disconnect that I was feeling is I had a client say to me once, no, I just want the nutritional recommendations. I don't want any of the lifestyle or any other types of recommendations. And that hit me like a train. I thought, wow, it's amazing that the outside recommendations outside of nutrition were not of interest. There was no other lifestyle habits that she wanted to change. And that was a really big moment when I realized that it doesn't just take nutrition. And I think I knew that. I always knew that. But it was this moment where it came to the forefront, and I realized, no, it takes a mélange. It takes a mix of so many different types of modalities, so many different, people. It's like it takes a village to raise a child. And it's the same thing as adults. We need to look at and explore different areas of our life in order to become totally balanced. So I had been practicing yoga for about the same amount of time that I went plant-based and started practicing yoga about 10 years ago. And I had always thought of them as separate things, but the truth is that the two of them together they have been my saving grace. And I just when I'm working with my clients who are my yoga clients, I hear them talking about how they want to change their nutrition habits, and then vice versa on the other end of the spectrum. And I thought, why am I not doing this together? This is just what feels more cohesive. And so it was really just taking a step back and looking at my business from an outside perspective and realizing that I was splitting my attention into two different businesses, and it did not make sense. And really what felt more aligned was to bring the two together and start to work in that way.
Amazing, amazing. I love it. And it's just a true testament to, and this conversation comes up in marketing all the time, especially for multi-passionate creatives. It's like, well, I can help people solve this problem. I can help people solve that problem. And so often we're told to, as you say, just focus on one thing and really niche down. That sometimes we get lost in that conversation rather than zooming out and saying, like, actually, what I have here is a really unique skill set that actually really complements each other and ultimately serves our clients more when we get to bring all of that to the table in the work that we're doing, and really just figuring out our own way to do that and really give ourselves permission to do that. And, of course, you can still use the marketing, strategies that help you get more traction and, all of the traditional ways of doing things. But, there's obviously some leeway within that we get to play around with, and we get to, make it up as we go along and do our own thing. So that's really
absolutely cool. And sort of infusing your own personality and your own experience. That's such an important facet that it's hard when you're in it to see it. Sometimes you really do have to, as you said, zoom out and take a look at it from a different perspective. So
totally. And that's always the thing that really makes you stand out too, is bringing that uniqueness and all of those parts of you to the table. Is there's no one else out there who's exactly like you and who's exactly, has all of the skills and experiences and the stories in particular. And so that's the most important part to focus on. So, so tell me, if you had like one message that you really wish like everybody could know that you're really passionate about sharing, what would that message be?
Ooh. I think at the root of all of this, it comes down to our belief systems and our habits. And, I grew up eating a standard American diet. I grew up in North America. I grew up in a very normal household, very normal situation. And it was actually the moment that I chose to challenge where my belief systems came from. It was the moment I chose to challenge what I had always done as maybe that was the problem. So if, for everyone out there who's struggling with weight, who's struggling with any kind of health concern, whatever that might be, I encourage you to challenge your belief systems, because a lot of people will say, oh, I'm trying this new ointment for my eczema, or, I'm trying this new thing for my eczema, and it's topical, it's superficial. And, that's layered, because it really is superficial. We're looking at the skin problem rather than getting to the root of the problem. And this is only one example. And so when we step back and we say, okay, why am I so resistant to removing dairy from my diet, for instance? Maybe it's because I have a hard time giving up cheese, or maybe it's because it's just so normal for me to have cream in my coffee. But we don't actually step back and challenge those beliefs and where that even came from, and start to rewire and rehardwire ourselves to believe that, I don't need that. That's not serving me. It does not add health to my life. So if I remove it, what would that do? How would that feel? What would be the reaction or the response from doing that? So, in my own experience, there's been a lot of, and they continually come up. By no means am I finished this work, but when these belief systems or habits start to show themselves, and very often a little hint is we can find these reflections in the people around us, especially the people who who you're challenged by, especially the people who you're like, oh, and if you butt heads, then ask yourself, why am I so triggered? And really getting to the root of that can let go of so many health conditions. Like we hold on to toxicity in every form, whether it's toxicity from heavy metals in our food or chlorine or whatever, or toxicity that's emotional from bad relationships or from traumatic moments. And we hold on to that in our physical body, and it begins to manifest as dis-ease. And so when we're dealing with health problems, the biggest thing I would encourage everybody to do is start to challenge every aspect of your life, and especially the things that you do habitually every single day. Just because you do them every day, just because you've been doing them for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, doesn't mean that it's actually benefiting you. And I think that that's a hard pill to swallow. And it's also a really liberating pill to swallow when we finally do take that moment and release anything that's not serving us anymore.
I love that. It's so true. And yeah, I've told this story a few times of the way that I recovered from a really serious health situation that basically put my entire life on pause. Like I didn't have enough energy to go out, like do the things that I loved, spend time with friends, even work that much. And the thing that shifted it for me was coming at it from every single angle. And, coming at it from my food, my diet, my habits, my lifestyle, my mindset, my, emotional well-being and care, spirituality, like every single level. And that's really what it took to make the transformation. And, on the flip side, even if you don't have a massive problem or a health challenge, you can still use all of, coming at your life from all of those directions to take it to the next level and to improve and, create more of the things that are even more in alignment, bring you more joy. And let's be honest, this is a conversation about energy. Like that's our currency right now, right? Like we're in this world where we're constantly being bombarded with requests for our energy and distraction and, screens and like alerts and things that are designed to take our attention away from ourselves and from our bodies and from the present moment. And, I can't remember who said this. I'm terrible at quoting people, but it's like the world belongs to the energetic, right? If you can take control of your energy and really maximize that, that's your currency that enables you to show up and take the actions to create the life that you want, to create the change that you want to see in the world, and in your own relationships and in your own homes. So yeah, nutrition, yoga, meditation, all of these practices are, an investment, and those are the things that unlock really whatever we want to create with our life, right? And I know I would love to talk to you about another practice that you use. I've been to one of Amy's workshops in Montreal where she did this incredible yoga nidra meditation. And this is something that I've come back to recently because it is one of those really powerful meditations that allows you to cultivate your energy and brings you this deep rest and relaxation, which, particularly now under everything that's going on, there's so much that's taking up a lot of our bandwidth that we're just trying to process at the moment with the pandemic, with, everything that's going on in the US. And yoga nidra has been the thing that I've really been getting back into. So I would love for you to just explain a little bit about like the power of this tool and your own personal journey with it.
So yoga nidra, that's such a great question. I'm glad you brought this up because especially my whole philosophy is about belief systems and habits. That's everything comes down to our beliefs and our habits, and our beliefs shape our habits. And yoga nidra essentially helps you to get to the root of your belief systems by dropping you into an alpha theta brainwave state. So it's lower brainwave state just before sleeping, but you're not totally, you're in your subconscious mind. And that's the really beautiful thing because, we live from our subconscious minds. Anything we do habitually, from the minute that you wake up in the morning, go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, a lot of this is very habitual, and that's living from the subconscious mind. The subconscious does not have the ability to filter. This is truth, this is not truth. This is good, this is not good. The subconscious only accepts ideas. And so when a really good example is watching television. What are you watching? Is what you're watching something that you would want to be accepted into your subconscious, like violence and horror and all of this kind of stuff? Because you watching television put yourself into a subconscious mind, which means that you are simply absorbing. So drama TV, all of that kind of stuff just gets sucked in. And then we start to live from that space. We start to experience what our subconscious mind believes is true, which is violence and horror and all of these things. So that's one example. When we practice yoga nidra, what we do is we lie down, you get into sort of a meditative, comfortable space here. And then there's someone who's guiding you through a very specific set of movement through the body. You're completely still, but you're moving your mind from your physical body into your mental body, into your emotional body, and then into your spiritual body. And what this does is it allows you to totally disconnect from the physical realm and become part of consciousness, to become, and I know this sounds really, for those of you who are like, what, right now, don't worry. It is rooted in science as well. As I mentioned, we get into the certain brainwave states. And when you're in that brainwave state, it allows your subconscious mind to be open. So a big part of the practice while you're in this extremely relaxed state, in your alpha brainwave state, is that you repeat to yourself a sankalpa or a mantra or a powerful I am statement. So for instance, if you notice in your world that you are manifesting a lot of the same types of relationships, and maybe they're not healthy relationships, your sankalpa could be something like I am attractive, or I am attracting positive, healthy relationships, or I am unconditional love. I am valued for who I am. For those of us who have belief systems around feeling unworthy, which is a very common one, actually, very, very common. And so you start to hardwire your mind, because it's through repetition that we actually begin to change our belief systems. And so you start to repeat this sankalpa to yourself again and again and again while your subconscious mind is wide open. And then when you come out of your yoga nidra practice and you're back in the waking world and you're moving around, we start to act from that place, that new space, which says, I am unconditional love. I am valued for who I am. I am attracting the right relationships in my life. And it's been such an interesting, it sort of found me by accident. I was doing a yoga teacher training a few years back, and a part of that training was in yoga nidra. And so I took the training because I loved my teachers and I really wanted to do this training. And I thought, okay, yoga nidra sounds interesting. I'll give it a try. And it blew my mind. So it was an intensive 8 days. We did a yoga nidra practice twice a day, every day. And then, of course, in between the two practices was all of the study about sankalpas, about belief systems, about brainwave states, about everything. And during that time, that was my real first experience going into an 8-day intensive. And I came out of that with it completely shifted the way that I was reacting and responding with the world outside of me. And prior to that, I had a lot of experience in yoga, but never to this extent, never, I had always sort of stayed in the sort of physical realm. I had always stayed in the, very light meditation, 5 minutes here or there, a little bit at the beginning of my practice. But this took it to a very different level, and it allowed me to have a deeper connection with where my habits come from. It allowed me to look at every single thing that I do as a habit and as a belief, so that I know that I have complete control over everything in my external world. So yoga nidra, in other words, is magic. And it's, it's not for everyone. I don't think that anything is for everyone, but if you have never tried yoga nidra, I do definitely recommend trying it. I'm happy to recommend my teacher. She's got some yoga nidras up on YouTube, and she's a phenomenal teacher. I know that there's, you want to have somebody who's got a voice that you enjoy listening to, because you're going to be there, not moving, listening to their voice for 15 to 45 minutes or so. So I do definitely recommend her. Her name is Tanis Fishman, and I think you'll put this in the notes afterwards, and you can find her on YouTube. But give it a try. And when you're going into it, go into it with an open mind, and also try to look at what's going on in your world, and anything that's not bringing you 100% joy, anything that's making you feel like, even if it comes down to an energetic thing, if I'm just really tired, fatigued, and need more energy, using a sankalpa like I am abundant energy, I am limitless energy. Those are going to be the types of sankalpas that will help you heal from the inside.
Amazing. This was such a juicy conversation. Thank you so much for sharing that, Amy. And actually, while you were speaking, it reminded me the very first time I tried yoga nidra was when I was in Rishikesh in India, and I stumbled across a poster and went up, and it was like on the rooftop of somebody's house, and it was like literally lying underneath the stars with all these cozy blankets. And it was incredible. It was just so relaxing.
That's so nice.
We'll definitely put the link to your teacher in the notes. So thank you so much for coming and sharing all of your incredible wisdom with us today. This has been such an amazing conversation. I hope that anyone who's listening, if there was one thing that really resonated with you that, is really calling to you, or something that you think might benefit you to add to your habits, or to, make a shift in your lifestyle, please follow through on that, go and learn more from Amy. And why don't you tell people, like, if they want to work with you or find out more about what it is that you're doing, where can they find you?
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on here first and foremost. And my new website is launching at the beginning of July. So it's namatastenutrition.com. And you can also find me on Instagram and on Facebook. It's Namataste Nutrition. And feel free to drop a line, ask some questions. I do free consultations. They're usually 20 to 30-minute long consultations. You can book through my page. And then I also am opening up my group coaching program again in August of 2020. And I do open them seasonally. So every couple of months, I open enrollment. I accept a limited amount of students. And it's a 90-day crash course in plant-based living. And I do weave in a lot about belief systems, a lot about movement practices and different types of healing modalities that we can use. So if that's something that interests you, feel free to send me a message, and I'm happy to give you some more information.
Amazing. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Bye. For more inspirational content, head over to my website withsarahmac.com, and please support the show by liking, commenting, and subscribing.